Good afternoon and welcome to everybody who's joined us after lunch, especially our legends who are sitting here in the front. We appreciate all of you being here, but we'll deal with that later on. For the afternoon program, we're going to proceed now by introducing Mr. Peter van Ketz. Now, Peter says life on a farm is a rugged trail full of unexpected challenges and shifting conditions. Peter van Ketz is a world-renowned South African adventurer and motivational speaker known for rowing across the Atlantic Ocean and racing to the South Pole. Drawing from extreme expeditions, he inspires audiences with powerful lessons on resilience, leadership, and navigating change, especially relevant to today's agricultural challenges. This session will equip you with mental maps and leadership tools to steer your business with confidence, resilience, and peak performance, no matter the obstacles. I welcome to the stage Peter van Ketz. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Oops, shit. Oh, excuse my language. Thank you, heavens, I'm with farmers. Okay. So, Don, I do a lot of talks to farmers. In fact, last week I was at MPO. We did a talk for Agri West Cape, which was phenomenal, to some young farmers. And it's not often that I get introduced in English. So thank you very much. Most of the agricultural conferences that I speak in, I've got to speak Afrikaans, and it's very difficult for me to do my whole talk in Afrikaans. So, julle moet my verskoon hoor. I heard it's about 70-30 here today in any case. So, thank you for that kind introduction, very short. I did speak to Don before I came up here, and I just said to him, listen, Don, whatever you do, just keep my introduction very short. And he showed me what he had, and I was very thankful that it was that short. And I actually said to him, I related a story to him. I was at a conference a couple of months ago, and have any of you emceed a conference before? Or just like spoken at a conference? It's stressful, man. It's really stressful. And this was one of these big conferences, you know, that last 3 or 4 or 5 days. And the MC, I was the final speaker, so I closed off the conference, and the MC comes up to me, and he's looking a bit rattled. This is day 5. And he says, listen, Pete, I'm going to be introducing you, and I want to just make sure that all this information that I've got on you is correct. And I looked at him, it was like a couple of pages. Obviously, I'd got some stuff off the internet. And I said, just whatever you do, keep it brief. Take this out, take that out. I'm just a normal O from, East London and the Eastern Cape. I'm married to Kim. Kim's actually here. She's sitting in the bar. That's not normally where she sits, just by the way. So in any case, the evening went on. And he came up onto the stage very similar to this. There'd been a dance item before I came on. And he walked up and he stood behind the lectern, just like Don did. And he said, ladies and gentlemen, I'd now like to introduce Peter van Ketz. And he sat down. And Don, that was the shortest introduction I've ever had. So it's good to be here. It's a great honor for me to be speaking today. Henri, thank you very much for all the work that you've done. I don't know where she is now, running around to get me to speak here. So thank you so much. Time is precious, and so this hour that I've got with you, I truly am going to honor for you. So, I'm an endurance adventurer. That's what I do for a living. It's quite a weird occupation. And I've done some amazing expeditions all over this planet, many over 20 years. And I've learned some great lessons from these hard-earned lessons. And I'm going to share some of those lessons with you. And I know that you're going to be able to relate very strongly to them. I travel a lot all over the world, and South African people, and particularly South African farmers, are known as strong, Thai, resilient, hard people, good people, salt of the earth. And that's another reason why I love speaking to the agricultural community. So if you had to say, so what type of things have you learned over these years, Pete? I'd say, I think of the most important things that I've learned is I've learned how to operate in extreme environments, operate effectively in extreme environments. And I know that the farming community, often you are in that, and I speak at these communities all over South Africa. It's experiencing incredible droughts, floods, market collapses. So you operate in that environment as well. I've learned how to adapt to constant and radical change on these expeditions. I've learned how to build a resilient structure in my life, both personally and professionally. I've learned the importance of fussbait, of endurance, of grit. But I think one of the most important things that I've learned is the value of people. Surrounding ourselves with +1 people in our lives and in our businesses. I've learned that 95% of my successes that I've had are not done because I'm physically able to do that. Obviously, I am physically able to do that. But it's done because I have the right mindset towards achieving these things. And it's a mindset that I call the explorer mindset. And that's going to be the title of my presentation with you today. So I live in East London, about 20 k's Durban side of East London. Beautiful place, piece of paradise. And every time I go on an expedition, you're going to have to picture this, okay? The same kind of scene, profound scene, unfolds. So I'm sitting in my bakkie. I have my beautiful wife, Kim, sitting next to me. I have my daughter, Hannah, sitting just behind us. And in the back of my bakkie, I have all the last-minute things that I need to take with me to the start of the expedition. So all the big stuff has gone up ahead, and then it's just the last-minute things. And as I'm reversing my car out of the driveway, I have a myriad of thoughts going through my head. And the first one that I think of, I keep quiet about. I look at everything, and I think, geez, I wonder if I'm ever going to see this place again. Because that's kind of the nature of some of the expeditions that I've been on, completely into the unknown, radical environments. And secondly, most importantly, I turn to Kim and I look at her and I say, Kim, isn't this just the most wildly exciting thing that's unfolding right now as we speak? And she's quite a feisty Eastern Cape girl, and she gives me a look and as if to say, what are you talking about? And I say, because the very next time you and I drive back into this driveway, in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or however many months' time, depending on the expedition, a whole story is going to have unfolded. Yes, and I wonder what that story is going to be. And I've known every single time that story that I come back with is going to be filled with hardship, way more than I could have anticipated, thought about, planned for, prepared for, trained for, all of those things. But I've also known that story is going to be filled with amazing things. Teamwork between myself and whoever I'm doing the expedition with. Meeting other adventurers, explorers, holding the South African flag above the South Pole, making friends with birds and fish. I can see some of you are giving me a funny look. Moenie worry nie, alles is reg, hoor. And you'll see as we go along. But I've never known what that story is. As you are sitting here today, if you were to come back to this MPO event in a year's time and sit next to the same people, you're going to have a story that needs to be told. None of us know what that story is going to be. But I know all of you have got plans to make sure that story is successful and is significant, that we make a difference to other people's lives in our journey. But we don't know what that story is. And I want to tell you, every single time, as you can see, I have driven back into that driveway. And there is a story that needs to be told. And I'm going to share 1 or 2 little snippets of those stories from the expeditions on that journey with you today. So I'd say, could you just push to the next slide? Yeah. So let's start here. So how do we take our businesses, our farm, our family lives, how do we take it to the next level? How do we make sure that this journey that we are going to go on is a successful and significant one? I always say we need to start, and I know, sorry, it's a bit of a small screen, but I don't know if you can all read that. We need to embrace life like it's the greatest adventure. And you may say, Pete, that's easy for you to say because that's what you do for a living. Well, I want to show you that your business, and I know that my marriage to Kim has been the greatest expedition I've ever been on. It has everything that an expedition has, okay? So embrace life like it's the greatest adventure. What has adventure done for me? Adventure has allowed me to surround myself with the most amazing team of people. This is just some of them down in Antarctica. It's allowed me to understand the value of equipping myself with the latest technology. And I know we're going to have an AI speaker a little bit later. It showed me the importance of preparation and planning and perfect execution. It's allowed me to continue inspiring and teaching, motivating people all over this planet. It's allowed me to test myself physically and mentally in some of the world's most remote, rugged, spectacularly beautiful places. I've suffered greatly in order to achieve these things. I know that some of these photographs may look very grand, but it does come hand in hand with a whole lot of suffering. I have cried. I have laughed hysterically, like in this expedition. I'll touch on it later. I have danced on some of Africa's Great Lake shores. And I have stared in wonder at galactic outbursts and had long conversations with God. I have trembled on this planet, some of this planet's mighty storms, and we'll touch on this one a bit later as well. I've stared down the barrel of AK-47s. I have made friends with fish, okay, and we're going to tell this story later as well, and birds. And it's been an incredible privilege to be able to do that. I've trekked through some avatar-like forests in Central Africa and Central America. I have come face to face with rare, wild, and extremely dangerous apex predators. I've got lost in wonder. Okay, so this is not physically lost, otherwise I wouldn't be standing here as intact as I am with all my extremities intact, but this is lost in wonder in the South Pole and up in the North Pole. I've risked much. Does anybody want to guess where that is? Come on. Uchrabis, okay? One of the side falls of Uchrabis Falls. I've risked much and I've dared greatly. I have triumphed, and almost more importantly, I have learned that the best of Piet van Ketz comes out when he is faced by incredible challenges and being able to overcome those challenges. I love this photograph because the polar bear is such a significant symbol of the Earth's struggle for survival. And this is a picture taken up on one of our on the North Pole expedition. If I had to ask each one of you right now what your definition of success was, I bet you I'd get 130 different answers. And you know what? That's okay. Because whatever your definition is, that belongs to you, it's yours, 100%. Okay, there's no ways I can tell you what success is. For me, success is being able to achieve that vision that I set out for my life. And then obviously underneath that, it's all tiered. Now, Harvard Business School did a classic study, and Angela Duckworth speaks about it in her book, Grit, where they took successful organizations and successful people, and they try to find out, are there any common characteristics that knit these people together? The idea that they would write a book on these common characteristics, and that if you read that book and applied those characteristics to your organization or to yourselves personally, you would almost automatically be guaranteed success. And at the end of that study, they came to one single conclusion, that the secret to success, in fact, remains a secret. Doesn't that seem like a whole lot of waste of resources and time? They showed that amongst other things, coming from a top socioeconomic background would not automatically guarantee success. And in fact, in many of the cases they studied, it was quite the opposite. They showed that going to the best schools, going to the best universities, getting a degree from Harvard Business School would not automatically guarantee success. They showed that having the highest IQ in this room would also not do that for you. So then what does? With 93% of those people and organizations they studied, they did come across a common characteristic, and that characteristic was a significant predictor in their ability to achieve and sustain continued success, and it was this one thing. I don't know if you can all read that. Grit. Vasbyt. I'm going to lump a couple of words together here. They are of the same genre, but they mean slightly different things. Resolve, resilience, etc. But I come from the Eastern Cape, and we have a good isiXhosa word here for that. I don't know if any of you know what that word is. Nyamazela. Nyamazela is a beautiful word. It doesn't just mean to endure. It means when you're on this journey, and you are faced by a moment of imminent disaster, and you are able to overcome that moment, and then the next and the next, that time is what we call Nyamazela. So look at the people sitting around you right now. All successful people. 93% of you sitting here today, and I think it's much more than that, are sitting here today because you have been able to show Vasbyt in your journey, Nyamazela. So I, as a pro-adventurer, I've had many opportunities to test my Nyamazela on many places, and I've been on many expeditions, and I'd love to tell you about them all, but we don't have enough time today, so I'm just going to touch on one or two of them. Just recently, at the beginning of this year, actually, we were in Jordan, but this was for a film shoot, and the idea for this was to create an adventure route from the Red Sea in Aqaba through Wadi Rum, Wadi Mujib, absolutely spectacular areas, passing through Petra. Has anybody been to Petra here before? Beautiful place. It's one of the 7 wonders of the world. And then finally ending up in the Red Sea. Things got a little bit too hectic, and we weren't able to actually finish this, and it should be happening as we speak right now. But I'm here now and not able to do that expedition just because of the political environment. So in 2018, we did this expedition here into Central Africa, and the idea with this one was to hike and trek a series of volcanoes and mountains in Central Africa, from Burundi through Rwanda, DRC, and the border of Uganda. Absolutely spectacular expedition. Very, very beautiful. And if you had to ask me, so Pete, out of this expedition, what is the greatest lesson you learned? I would say that when you're in Central Africa and somebody with an AK-47 asks you to do something, you do it. Okay, you comply. We had one of those situations there. In 2015, we tried to reenact one of those olden day type expeditions. Have you heard of adventurers like Amundsen or Scott or Shackleton? Okay, great guys, amazing people. And what they would do is they would train their sled dogs. They would put them on a ship. They'd sail either up to the Arctic or down to Antarctica. They would do their expedition with their dogs. They'd finish the expedition, come back, put the dogs back on the ship, and then sail. Well, if you're Norwegian, in those days, I don't know if you know this, but the Norwegians used to use their dogs as part of the dietary plan for the journey. And in fact, I did this expedition with a Norwegian explorer, and I said to him, Hovard, we're going with 5 dogs. Ons kom terug met 500, hoor. So I spent some time in Norway training these 2 Greenland sled dogs, Figaro and Fipling. If you had to look at the dog kingdom, right at the top of the dog kingdom is a wolf, and then directly underneath the wolf are these dogs. Very big, very powerful. They do not like polar bears. And the concept was that they would be attached to me, just 2 dogs. They would be attached to me. I would be attached to the sled, and very economically, we would do this expedition together. When the ice got good, I would detach myself from the dogs, put them straight onto the sled, and then I would just hook into the sled. Okay, if they run off with the sled, they're gone. You will not catch them. Okay, and that would be a problem. And then we put them onto this boat over here. You can see the kennels right up in the front of the boat. And we sailed across the Barents Sea to Svalbard, which is situated just off the east coast of Greenland at about 82 degrees north. Except getting across the Barents Sea was going to be a little bit tougher than we had anticipated. So who of you here have gone on holiday before by seeing a brochure and going, yes, there's a lekker place that, I need to go to that place. And when you get there, or you've looked up online and that's a nice place to go to, and when you get there, it's completely different to the place that you had looked at, or it's the same, but it's like the photographs were good. Okay, so getting across the Barents Sea, I had a different picture of it inside my head. And I shouldn't have, but I did. Getting across is going to be a little bit tougher than we had anticipated. This is a series of photographs taken by a Norwegian Coast Guard. And the Norwegian Coast Guard pulled up next to us in the storm. And basically, the ship's captain got onto the radio and said, what on earth are you oaks? Or he just said it in Norwegian, so he didn't say oaks. He said, but basically, what on earth are you guys doing here in the middle of the Barents Sea at this time of the year? And our response was, we're not 100% sure what we're doing here. But we are here. And they were like, I think they were springboarding off us, okay, because we looked pretty unhappy on our boat. And they said, would we mind if they used us as a bit of training session for the 3 days the storm was going to rage? And we said, help yourselves, okay. And they stuck with us for the 3 days, and it was great to have them there with us. And then getting up to Svalbard, absolutely, absolutely spectacular. I love this photograph. And the idea then was to find a nice ice shelf where we could put our ice picks in and spend a couple of days finally preparing all our food, etc., for the expedition, and one without polar bears, okay, because that's where they hang out to eat the seals. Svalbard has got the greatest population of polar bears in the world, and they are the most dangerous animals in the world. If a polar bear sees you on the ice, a big male one, he's only doing one thing, and he's coming to eat you. okay? That's what he's doing, and you have to stop them or dissuade them from doing that. And we didn't want to start off like that. We spent our time there just like that, doing our final packing, and then got onto the ice to do this expedition. Spectacularly difficult expedition for South African Kargebroek, South African Okie, and dogs, but one, again, where great lessons were learned. And then about 6 weeks later, our boat came back to pick us up, and this is not where it picked us up. This is just a nice photograph of the boat again, and then we had that amazing sail to look forward to, back to Norway again. It wasn't as rough as it was on the way there, but it was still tough. I rowed across the Atlantic Ocean with a very good mate of mine from East London, Bill Godfrey, Selborne boy, in a race called the Woodvale Transatlantic Rowing Race. It is a 5,500 kilometer race from the Canary Islands just off the coast of Morocco across the southern part of the North Atlantic Ocean to Antigua in the Caribbean. There were 23 rowing boats taking part in the race, all the same size, and the race itself completely unsupported and unassisted, which meant from the time we left that start line, which is where this photograph was taken, we would not see a soul until we got to Antigua. We rowed this boat here, Gulma Challenger, in shifts of, now this is important, try and picture this, hour and a half on, hour and a half off, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 50 days and 12 hours. Okay, so there wasn't 1 second on this row that one of us wasn't rowing, okay, except for Christmas Day. And Christmas Day, we would sit down together and eat our boil-in-the-bag chicken and herb dumplings. Now, it's not very exciting, I'm telling you, and we were so excited about it at the time, because up until then, we had been eating freeze-dried food. Have any of you eaten freeze-dried food before? Okay, it's not great, okay, but it's very high calories, the stuff we used, very high calories. We would take olive oil and put it inside our freeze-dried food as well, just to give us more calories, because we couldn't actually sit and eat the amount of meals that we needed every day to get the right amount of calories in. So olive oil was the way. 100 mils of olive oil, 800 kilocalories, 4-course meal, 1 shot. So 3 or 4 times a day, we would take a little mug, a special mug that we had, and we'd put our olive oil in, 100 mils, and swallow it down. Okay. Needless to say, me and olive oil have parted ways. Okay, we are no longer friends, okay. This is day 8 of the row. Love this photograph. Billy's just got off the satellite phone. He's had a live interview with John Robbie. In those days, he was on Radio 702. And the first thing that John Robbie said to him was, Billy, I don't know if you know this, but last night, you boys took first position in this row. And it was a significant moment for us, because in the very first conversation that I had with Billy, we agreed on 2 things. The first one was this: what do we want to achieve out of this row? Because we knew what was coming, suffering-wise. Because if one person wants to win the race and break the world record, and the other person doesn't care how long it takes, so long as they get across the ocean, day 30, you will be killing each other. Okay, because different mindsets going into the race. So we agreed from that moment, everything that we did was going to be to prepare ourselves and train to win the race and break the world record. And this is day 8. It's starting to come together, and we held that for another 42 days after that. We endured 4 storms during this row. Adventurers, by the way, love to tell you how much they suffer. Okay, so how they pull their teeth out because there's no dentists around. They'll show you gruesome photographs, or cut their fingers off because of frostbite, etc., etc. I'm going to spare you those. But I want to quickly just tell you about one of the storms we had on this row. We had 4, because it's significant to the story. We finished at midnight on the last night of that storm. During that storm, the wind went from 5 kilometers per hour up to 110. It didn't sit at 110. It would come back down to like 60, 65. If you've been in anything over 70 kilometers per hour, you'll understand what that means. Okay. It is frightening. The swell went from 2-3 feet up to 12 meters. Now, this is not 12-meter breaking waves. Okay, these are big, thick bits of water traveling at high speed across the ocean. And then on the top of those 12-meter swells, you'll get what you call white horses. You see them out at sea. Today is a windy day, so you'd see them. Those white caps, they can get 6 to 8 feet big, breaking over the boat. So you've got the wind, you've got the swell, you've got the lightning. That's the thing that scares me the most in any outdoor experience that I've had. Lightning striking 200 meters away from you. If you've been close to lightning, you'll understand that raw, primal sound that it makes. Okay, it is very much fear-inducing when you're out in the ocean holding two 14-foot carbon oars sitting in a carbon boat. Okay, it is quite something. And we finished at midnight on the last night of that storm. And we rode around onto the leeward side of Antigua, which meant everything went calm. The wind calmed down because it protected from the island. And we got into this lagoon called English Harbor. And we had to row through this lagoon to get to the quayside where Kim and Billy's family and pretty much the whole island had come down to see these mad South Africans arriving on their boat. And as we're weaving our way through all these super yachts and smaller boats, it's midnight now, people are coming out, lighting flares, wishing us well, shouting. But from the quayside, 1.5 kilometers away, we could hear two sounds coming. The first one was people singing Nkosi Sikelele. It was amazing. Okay, lots of South African sailors there. And what's that other sound we South Africans just don't seem to get away from? Vuvuzela, yeah. I don't know how, but they were there. Okay, vuvuzelas. And I'll never forget getting off the boat. And the very first, I was super unstable on my feet. The very first thing that I did is I put my arms around Kim. And I know some of you are looking at that photograph. That is not Kim. Okay, you'll see Kim over there in the background. But also, let me just at this point say, Billy and I are still good mates. And this is the second thing that we talked about in that conversation, that first conversation. We need to make a plan to make sure that at the end of this race that we are both alive, okay, and that we are still good friends. I'm going to chat about that a little bit later. Any case, so I put my arms around Kim, and I look at her, and I say, Kim, seriously, if I ever say that I want to do something like this again, you need to stop me, okay, because I'm full of wild ideas all the time, but this one, this is not a good one at all, okay, so. And she looked at me and she said, Pete, don't worry, I absolutely will. Okay, so let's fast forward. 2 weeks later, I'm back in South Africa. I'm starting to think about the next expedition. I start thinking, no African has ever rode any ocean solo before. Okay, so now I'm one of 9 children, okay? So life at home was super competitive, so I am competitive in nature, especially around food, by the way. And so I start thinking, I really need to be that person to do this thing. So now I've got a problem at home. I've got Kim sitting at home who I've got to commit to me that she's not going to allow me to do this. In any case, I pluck up enough courage one day and I get home and I say, Kim, come and sit down. There's something you and I need to talk about. And we start talking about doing this next expedition 2 years later, but this time doing it solo. And it was a hard conversation. At the end of it, she looks at me and she says, you know what, Pete, you must go and do this road. I'll never stop you from achieving that dream and that vision that you have for your life, both personally and professionally, because for me to do so would to diminish you in a way as a person. She said, go for it, but be warned. How's that for an amazing wife? Yeah? And so, 2 years later, there I am on my new boat. Does anybody want to guess what I called it? If you get this right and your hand goes up, I'll give you a copy of my new book. Yes? Yes! So good. A lot of people say, no, you called it Kim. So I just want to quickly show you. Now, it'll be difficult to do this. On a bigger screen, it would be easier. My left-hand oar, you can see I've got Kim's name written on the oar. On my right-hand oar, I've got Hannah's name. I had a hat, which I called Mahatma Gandhi. It's cool, eh? My steering system at my feet was called Helen Tiller. My inflatable life raft sitting next to me on the left-hand side there, right hand of the screen, is Nrabadingi Sitole. And then my bucket, which I thought was classic, as Julius May Emmer. Okay, it's perfect. So you come up with weird things all the time. So listen, spending this amount of time out at sea alone, you start losing it a little bit. But in any case, this is one of the ways to keep me sane. Once again, Nyamazela, I rode this boat here and shifts off. Same race, 2 years later, hour and a half on, hour and a half off. Except when I went off for that hour and a half, no Billy, keeping the boat going in the right direction. And that boat is left to the wind and current and whatever nature could throw it was at me. It was the toughest part of the journey. And I did that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 76 days. Now they say, yeah, that's that midnight, 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock sessions, all those. They say if you truly want to know yourself, spend 24 hours in isolation. Then try 76. I guarantee you there's not one person sitting here, it doesn't matter how old you are, or how much experience that you think you have, that would not learn a great deal about themselves after spending 76 days alone in a 7-meter rowing boat. And if you had to say to me, so Pete, come on, put all of your expeditions in one big, massive expedition and come out at the end with one lesson that you have learned, the greatest lesson, what would it be? Because I get asked that a lot. And the greatest lesson that I've learned would be this, and I wish I could look all of you in the eye when I say this, because I truly mean it, is that you and I have been incredibly made, physically and mentally much better than we could ever begin to imagine. However, we will only ever begin to discover this when we get to that point where we think we cannot go anymore, and we do. When we get to that point where we think we are unable to do, or we challenge ourselves to do something that we think is much greater than us, and we do it, and we create this process, resilience process, to make sure that if any trouble happens in the future, we can get up again and we can continue going. We do that over and over and over again in our lives, and it's only then. And I know this sounds cliched, because it is. When we are well out of our comfort zones, will we ever begin to discover who we really are? And so that is a great challenge to all of us. And I know that all of you have been out of your comfort zones many times in your life. And it's something, especially young people, they hide away from because it's tough. It really is hard. But it's only there that we will find the best in who we are, in the best in Piet van Ketz. So we need to believe in this journey that we're going on. This story that you're going to tell in a year's time, it starts here. It starts, everything starts up inside our head. I believe Piet van Ketz can do this row across the Atlantic Ocean. Hour and a half on, hour and a half off, 24 hours a day, 76 days. I planned for 90. Can I do it? Man, it's a hard thing to do. But yes, if I put the right processes in place. So start believing in that journey. I had one storm during this row. I'm not going to speak about it much. Lasted 6 days, 5 nights. Awful time, one of the hardest times of my life. And this is 6 weeks after that. Exactly 6 weeks. This is at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm about 3 nautical miles away from Antigua. And the sun's just come up. That's why I'm so orange. This is at 9 o'clock in the morning. This is crossing that finish line. Love this photograph. I'm minus 18 kilograms of body weight here. And julle kan sien, ek's 'n skraal ouetjie. I'm a skinny ou. It's a bit like a prisoner of war there. But I love this. Underneath that boat right there, you can't see them. I'm sure they're still there because I jumped overboard at 6 o'clock in that morning to say goodbye. Are 6 fish this big. Dorado. In other parts of the world, they're called mahe-mahe, or dolphin fish. Who's eaten Dorado here before? Quickly. Some of you are not putting up your hands, I know. Sisman. So here's the thing. Dorado are the only fish in the sea that mate for life. How's that? Super clever. I'm going to come out of some kind of weird closet now. I had a relationship with 6 fish for 6 weeks. Don't worry. And those 6 fish helped me to get to the finish line of this row. I'm going to tell you a story about them now. But you can watch the journey, this row. It was on DSTV, but it's now on my YouTube channel, so you can watch it. The movie is called Not Alone. This is some footage from both of these rows. So I'll never forget, at the end of that row, I get off my boat, and I'm unstable on my feet. It's the same quayside 2 years later. There's Kim. I put my arms around her, and I say, Kim, seriously now? Like, if I ever say I want to do that again, you need to stop me. And she looked at me and she said, Pete, don't worry, this time I absolutely will. So a couple of weeks later, we're back in South Africa. I'm starting to think about the next thing. Kim comes to me and she says, Pete, yes, guld for me. And I said, of course I owe you. What's up? She says, next expedition is mine. So she ran from our house to Mozambique, marathon a day, minimum, and then got onto a mountain bike and mountain biked the inland borders of South Africa to that southeastern corner of Namibia. Just below Grabie's, got into a kayaked the Orange River to Alexandria Bay in the mouth on the coast, put her running shoes back on, ran down the Namakwa coast, west coast, around Cape of Good Hope, back to East London again, 6,800 kilometers. And you think, I'm nuts. So who of you here have got children? Quickly, just show of hands. Okay, yeah, most of you. Okay. So do you have DNA wars with your wife or conversations like, that child's not my child, this yoke and I? Yeah? Yeah, Kim and I have it all the time because our daughter Hannah is quite sedentary. She doesn't like movement too much. And we're always going, that's not my gene. Okay. So the one day I was being a bit of a bad dad. I was getting Hannah to do this, kind of forcing her to do this mountain bike race with me. And she was busy packing her kit up at his feet. And as she was packing her kit up, she said something like, if only I'd been born into a normal family, this would never have happened. Life in Africa is hard, eh? In any case, during Kim's trip, I get a phone call from the person on the left-hand side of that screen, Bramwell Herber. Says to me, Pete, listen, I have an opportunity to go down to Antarctica to take part in a centenary celebration race of the first two people ever to get to the South Pole before. I don't know if you know, Roald Amundsen was the first person to the South Pole, Norwegian explorer. 35 days later, Sir Robert Falcon Scott and his team arrived, and Bram's busy telling me the story. And he says, and you know, Pete, and then and I know the story, and he said, and on their return journey to their ship, they ran out of fuel, they ran out of food, and they basically died of cold and starvation. And very short of the last food pile that they had set up on the way out. And he says, it's a great story. And I said, yeah, I know, it's a great story. And he said, and so do you want to come and do this race with me? I go, Bram, are you completely nuts? Of course I want to come do this race with you. I mean, who in their right mind wouldn't? But from what you've said right now, we've got 3 months to go before the start of this race. It's not enough time to go out there and try and prepare and train to win it. But if we can go and do some cold weather training, acclimatization training, maybe do a polar survival course, learn how to cross-country ski, didn't know how to ski before, I'm in. And so, you know how quickly 3 months can go, very quickly. This is in Iceland, Longical, means long glacier, 3,500 meters above sea level. We did a polar survival course there. We had to do a little bit of cross-country skiing there. We would be skiing 16 hours a day, pulling 150 kilos of sled behind us, racing against 6 other international teams. It was quite an important thing for us to learn how to do. And then the rest of the time, we pulled tires up and down our coastline just like this. And often when people see this photograph, they go, Bram, Pete, you don't need to show us this photograph. We know the wheels came off yokes a long time ago. And then we had to get down to Cape Town to get onto this Russian Ilyushin aircraft that takes scientists and people down to Antarctica. And then from there, they get flown off to their different scientific bases. So with all 7 other teams and scientists, we flew down to the Russian Novo base. And then there we spent 3 amazing days. No wind, which is unusual for that part of the world. And just finally preparing all our food. And that food that you see there is food mixed with? No more. Butter. Butter's amazing. Because olive oil tastes more like olive oil, right? So butter, you can have normal butter, garlic butter, herb butter. But then you can do your own thing as well. Biltong butter, Droevorst butter, peanut butter, avo butter, whatever you want in bite-sized chunks like that. It's freezing. The 2 temperatures that I know for a fact on this race was at the start line. It was minus 35 degrees centigrade without wind chill factor. And then when we got to the Scott Amundsen base at the South Pole 900 k's later, it was minus 48 degrees centigrade the day we arrived. How cold is that? It's hard to explain. Take a jersey. Definitely. Okay, and then we had to Trek through the glaciers to the high plateau. For 10 days it took us to get to that high plateau. You can see the mountain range in the background. Absolutely spectacular getting up through that mountain range. But once you're up at the top on that high plateau, that's what it looks like. It is devoid of life. No bird, no seal, no penguin, definitely no polar bear. That's only in the North Pole. Okay. That is at 3,200 meters above sea level. The South Pole's at 3,500 meters above sea level. The air is very thin up there. It's much thinner than 3,500 meters in South Africa. Then the race organizers drew a line in the ice and snow. They pulled out a rifle. They let off a shot. They said, we'll see you guys at the South Pole. We had one point to get to, more or less halfway, where we would be met by a pretty dodgy British doctor who was being looked after, but dodgy in a good way, by 3 Special Forces Norwegian guys. Okay. And there we had to spend 24 hours, and the idea with that was to recoup a little bit. So the doctor could check us out for frostbite. We'd all have frostbite at that stage, light bits, some heavier than others, which was amazing. Okay, that's the next time we would see people. So let's fast forward. Day 5 of this race. Day 5. There are only 3 teams standing, just 3 teams. And Brahm and I were one of those 3 teams. So how do we do it? So these few lessons that I've learned, when we start something, when you conceptualize something inside our brains that we're going to do this, we've got this plan. How do we make sure, what are the basic things that we need to do to make sure that we are successful in it? I love this photograph. This is Billy. This is 25 nautical miles away from winning the first race across the Atlantic Ocean and breaking the world record. Okay, you can see his eyes are sunken deep in the back of his head. This is the end of that 4-day storm. This is at the end of 4 days of not a single second sleep. Okay, and we're crossing shifts here, so he took this photograph. To get to this point took a huge amount of struggle, sacrifice, and suffering, proper. To get to this point took nyamazela, fussbait, lots of it, every single day, every single shift. But that doesn't just happen. Fussbait cannot just be created in a vacuum. There's got to be something that inspires and motivates us to want to fussbait. And that thing is called passion. Okay, so this is the first thing that I want to speak about. And I really like the word. I've written a book about it. But I also dislike it almost as much because it's been used uselessly in meetings just like this, in conferences all over the world. People say, we need to be passionate about what we do. But why? Why is it? What does it mean to you, that word passion? Let me tell you what it means to me. Put yourself on this boat here. Try and picture this. 3 o'clock in the morning. You're on your own. You're lonely. You're exhausted. It's raining. You've slept like on average 2-3 hours a day for the last 20 days. Your hands are blistered and raw almost to the bone. You saw pictures just now. You've got boils, pressure sores on your backside, salt sores everywhere where the sun doesn't shine. You will not see pictures of those. Okay, only for special friends. There's a little red gremlin sitting on your shoulder, and it's speaking to you. We all have one. And it's saying, Pete, this is complete nuts. You need to stop this nonsense. Okay, this is crazy. You know, pull in these oars, rest until the sun comes up. When the sun comes up and it's time, get on the satellite phone, call Marine Rescue Service Center in Falmouth in the UK, get them to organize the closest ship to you to come and fetch you and get you the hell out of there. It's batshit crazy. This is bat crazy, okay? And then it starts qualifying why it must do that. 1, Pete, to do another 24 hours like this is physically impossible. Because that's what it feels like at 2-3 o'clock in the morning, every morning. Pete, if you go through another storm, you're not going to see Kim again. You're not going to have that first dance with Hannah at her wedding. When she's 40, I've told her. See, I'm a good dad, right? You see, the only thing that will allow you to not listen to that voice, finish that shift exactly of 90 minutes, get into that cabin, rest, eat, fix boat, navigate, do whatever you need to do, and then have a little bit of sleep for another 90 minutes exactly, and then get back out there, put that backside back in that seat, curl those hands around the oars, and row for another 90 minutes is, how much do you want to do it? That level of desire that's inside us to want to achieve that vision that we have, that dream that we have for our farms, whatever it is. That is the thing, ultimately, that drives Nyamazela, fuzzbait, and becomes almost more important than fuzzbait itself. Because without it, it doesn't exist. Surround yourself with +1 people. I love this. There are 3 types of people in this planet. You get -1s, people that are actively harmful, okay? They do not do what they're supposed to be doing. They are negative. They take other people in that downward spiral. We all know them. Then there are the zeros, the guys who do not tip the scales either way. We all know them. Then there are the +1s. Room full of +1s here, right? +1 people are inspirational people. People that you want to follow, people that you look up to, people that go the extra mile for you, that say what they're going to do. I mean, say what they say they're going to do, what they say what they're going to do. People who live up to their word, positive people who speak well into your life, people that you can trust. And here's the thing. If we are sitting here today thinking that we are that +1 person, that's great. But you can't be a +1 all the time. And that's why it's good to have +1 people around us. I love this photograph. Because another thing that we need to do is surround ourselves with people that share the same vision and passion as you. Things, the same moral structure, things like honesty, integrity. And for me, probably one of the most important, especially in a small race like this, is accountability. When Brahm asked me to do this race, and when Billy and I got together, and whoever I've done any expedition with, this is the second thing we talk about. I'll speak to them, I'll say, I will do this race with you on one condition. Once we've decided we're going to do this. That during this expedition, your focus is going to be to look after me. I want you to look after me. If I'm not eating properly, make sure I eat. If I'm not drinking properly, make sure I hydrate. If I'm feeling demotivated, inspire me, motivate me, tell me a joke. And you know what? I'm going to do exactly the same thing for you. Brahm, I've got your back 100%. I've got your back. I'm going to look after you, Brahm. We're going to get through this thing together. Whatever happens, I'm going to look after you. That's Brahm looking after me there. Making sure that I've got no skin showing. Once you leave, and if any skin is showing -40 degrees centigrade, you're not going to feel it. It'll go black and you'll get frostbite. Okay, so surround yourselves with +1 people. Embrace storms. If you had to ask me what your superpower is, and I know people would think this is strange, is that I love the idea of a storm. I love the idea of a great challenge. Of when things get really hard, that's when the best comes out in people. And we need to embrace storms, not run away from them. Make sure that we have the right processes in place to handle them. Because whoever your competitors are, they're in the same storm. Okay, there are things we can do. This is in a storm. You can see I'm holding my oars down here. The edge of my oars are sticking out far. I've got water coming off my face from the last wave that's broken over. I'm looking over the back of the boat, looking at the next wave that's going to break over us. Billy's just quickly got out, taken this photograph, and he's gone back in very quickly. There's opportunity in storms. And that first row across the Atlantic with Billy, that's why I've got this picture here. Every storm that we went into, our opposition was putting out parachute anchors. They're beautiful, old round army parachutes in the water. Boom, 100-meter rope, stop you. 100% stop. Keep the boat into the breaking waves, perfectly safe. Or you would put out a drogue chute. It looks like a windsock, like an aerodrome, windsock. Put off the back of the boat, slows the boat down completely so the back of the boat's going into the breaking wave. You don't want to go sideways into breaking waves. You know what we did? We shortened our rest period down to a half an hour. Half an hour rest, hour and a half on. Half an hour rest, hour and a half on. Which meant every shift we were rowing together for an hour, which was amazing. Because not only are we going faster, but we're also motivating and inspiring each other, speaking to each other. Because being out on that seat, and I know because of the solo row, being out on that seat alone without somebody speaking to you, keeping you company is hard. At the end of every single storm, we were miles ahead of our competitors. But to do that took way more suffering, way more hardship. But that was a great opportunity for us. Okay, so see opportunities. You're going to suffer in your journey. If you've got a big story you want to tell next year, it's coming your way. This is light frostbite, lips, cheeks underneath. I had some underneath my nose. This is starting to get a little bit more real. I'm not showing you these photographs to tell you that I'm a brave person. I think what I'm trying to say is that in order to achieve amazing things in our lives, it does come hand in hand with a bit of hardship. But there's also amazing things. Simon, juvenile storm petrel, lands on my boat 3 days into that 6-day storm. First 3 days, I'm worried about my own life. I'm in this like downward spiral of, wow, it's terrifying. The next 3 days, I must not kill Simon. Okay, because every time the boat gets rolled from side to side, there's this little bird, and I'm going to kill it. Simon and I are connected. Look. Okay, this is a wild bird. We're 2,800 kilometers away from any land. It was amazing. We had such a good time together. He's walking around that cabin as if he owns the place. I'm sure that bird was sent to look after me. 2 of the 6 Dorado that lived underneath my boat. Just after that 6-day storm, I noticed these fish living underneath my boat. And then every sunrise and sunset, they would jump out the water, bam, and they would jump and they would make a lot of noise. Didn't understand what was going on, but they would do that every day. Sunrise, sunset, back, jump out the water. It started the back of the hall away, like 20 meters away from me. And as the weeks went past, they would do that closer and closer and closer and closer until I started recognizing that something weird was happening. Because these fish would jump out the water and they would make eye contact with me. They were this close. And they would, okay, but not eye contact like this, okay, because they can't. It's like the one eye. It would look pretty weird if they did try. And if I wasn't on deck during that sunrise or sunset shift, they would swim underneath my boat and hit my rudder, boom, boom, or the side of my boat, boom. I've got great footage of it. Until I got out, until they made eye contact with me, they wouldn't stop. Weird, right? 6 weeks of that I had. And I would swim with them. This is a photograph I took of them while I was swimming. So amazing things. So there are also beautiful things to look at on these journeys. Some beautiful things to look forward to in our journeys. Quietest place on the planet. There, right there. You will not get quieter. Not on your farm, not in Sutherland, nothing. That is the quietest place in the world, I guarantee you. Utter silence. The sea is full of bioluminescence. I don't know if you get to the coast enough, and I don't know if you've ever seen bioluminescence. It's phosphorytic plankton. Okay, you touch the water like this, it lights up this bright green color. It's like those light sticks that you break. And sometimes that water is so thick with it, instead, at the end of your oar stroke, instead of it going splush, it goes whoop, like that. And at night, that lights up this bright green color. And as you do your draw stroke, you lift your oars up, and you pull them back, and each little drop of water that hits the ocean like this just lights up this bright green color. And you stand up on your boat. No moon, no clouds. Midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. The stars are so thick, I know my stars well. Can't make out the constellations, just too many. Shooting stars all the time. It's crazy, it's beautiful. And then you look to try and find the horizon. And you can't find the horizon. The horizon here is here at the edge of your boat because the water's like a mirror. So you're standing in this cocoon of stars and shooting stars and Dorado fish lit up in this bioluminescent plankton underneath your boat in utter silence. No drugs needed. Okay. It is super, super special. So look forward to those moments. Innovate. There's stuff that we can do in our businesses that will make us better. When we walk out of here, there's stuff every single day. I don't know what it is for you. I want to quickly tell you this story. I know I'm running out of time. 2 British Royal Marines. The biggest guys, they were racing against us in the first row. They walked around the island. They were going to win the race and break the world record. They didn't consider us 2 skinny South Africans, not for 1 second. They were big guys. Biggest guys I'd ever seen, actually. This is day 40 of this row. They sent us this photograph after the race. Look at him. He's still that size. In fact, they were the biggest until a few years ago. I went and spoke at Die Billy Millifees in Free State. There I met a couple of big guys. Okay. So, 2 hours before this race starts, they come up to us and they give us, do you know how stressful this is? 23 little boats, we're just about to go out into the big unknown. They come, everybody's like frantically trying to get the last minute stuff in their boat. They're walking around wishing everybody well. They come up to us, they shake our hands, they say, Billy Pete, as you both know, we are British Royal Marines. When we get to Antigua on the other side, we've got duties to go to. And I can't remember if it was Afghanistan or Iraq or whatever. But they're going to have to go off immediately. So by the time we get in, we're probably going to be gone. They're going to probably be gone. But they want to give us something to wish us well. I mean, it's great. It's nice to have that kind of way of thinking. Okay, so we shook their hands. We wished them well. We took that bottle. They gave us a juice bottle. On it, you can't see the name of the boat. It's written right up front. All it said on the bottle was Go Commander. Put it inside our cabin, not realizing how important that bottle was going to become to us later in the row. Now, we're talking about constant improvement here, okay? 2 days into the row, sorry where we're going with this, I'm glad we've had lunch. 2 days into the row, we worked out that going to the toilet over the side of the boat was taking too much time, okay, because this is how it works. So you've got to pull your oars in, picture the scene, pull your oars in, or picture whatever you want, okay? So get your feet out of the rowing shoes, get to the side of the boat, get it done, back in the seat, feet back in the shoes, off you go again. 3 minutes. Person who's not rowing needs to go, stands on the side of the boat, boat's like this, person who's rowing can't row, another 3 minutes. We worked out we're losing 3 nautical miles a day. One day, it's not far, 50 days, way more significant. We had to do something about this into the Go Commando juice bottle. So now we could sit in the seat, it was tricky, but we could sit in the seat, get it done, and throw it over the side of the boat. Okay? It's a bit messy, but there's always waves breaking over the boat. Person who's not rowing could stand in the middle of the boat, get it done, throw it over the side without disturbing the person who is rowing. Although it's a bit disturbing because you've got to watch the whole thing. But after a couple of days, there's no more mystery. It's all gone. So everything's good. So here we are. We're saving 3 nautical miles a day. 10 days before the race finishes, our satellite phone breaks. We go dead to the world. Gone. It's great. Now we can focus. At that point, we are still in first position. No Fear is 30 nautical miles behind us, another boat. This boat here, Go Commando, is in third position, 150 nautical miles behind us. Woo. 10 days later, we get to Antigua. We can now get on our VXF radio. We get onto our VXF radio. We find out we're still in first position. No Fear has caught up, another British boat. They're 24 nautical miles behind us. Go Commando is still in third position. They're 5 days behind us. Woo. So, man, that night we celebrate, obviously. Next day we come down to the boat. We want to clean it up, get it into the container, get all that admin done, and then spend 2.5. We were only going to be on the island for 3 days. So we want to spend 2.5 days getting rid of as many pina coladas as we can find, right? So we get down to the boat. We stand on the boat. Guess what rolls over the deck? Go Commando juice bottle. It dawns on us, we are not going to be there in 5 days' time when they arrive. We need to leave them something to remind them of us. Can you see where we're going with this? So we take the bottle, we wash it out as much as we can. We were good. I mean, we cleaned it as much as we could. We got a pen, Dear Ben in Orlando, we wrote in it, all the best, well done for the great race, all the best, Bill and Pete. And we left it with the race organizers to give them 5 days later when they got in because we weren't going to be there. So Billy and I often get together. And one of the things that we talk about was whether they took that bottle and used it or whether they smelt a rat. And we think the latter. But here's this one thing. Had we not done that one thing, we would have lost the race. That's not the dream. That's not our vision. There is something that we can do every day. It doesn't matter how small, that'll make us better and more efficient in the long run. I don't know what that is in your world, but there is something. Okay, last one I want to speak about is this. There are 2 types of discipline. And we've heard that word from when we were kids. The one is external discipline. That's me waking Don up at 4 o'clock in the morning saying, Don's my training partner for World Champs Ironman. Okay? Don, just pretend. And so I've got Don on the phone, and it's cold, man. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, and it's raining. And he says, and I said to him, Don, come, we're going to go do a 20K run. It's hard for Don to say no, because he's also got the same event. So he says, Pete, I'll see you in half an hour. It's great. Billy and I are waking each other up every hour and a half. Brilliant. Won the race, broke world record. It's great. But now, you're on this boat. It's 3 a.m. You're lying inside that cabin, and your alarm clock is going, day 60, day 50. Your hands are like that. Oh, it's miserable. You look out through that cabin, through that little hatch. It's wet on the deck. The boat's going from side to side like this, like this. And you've got to get back out there and do it. What do? Most people say you press the snooze button. And you know what? That's fine. It is actually fine. If you don't want to win the race and you don't want to break the world record. But if you do, you need to suck it up. You need to switch that alarm clock off. You get back out there, put that backside back in the seat, curl those hands around the oars and row for another hour and a half. Because if you don't, you're going to lose that dream, that vision. Here's the thing. If you press that snooze button, not a single person in the whole world will ever know. Doesn't that yay? It's just you and your maker. And here's another thing. If you press that snooze button once on your journey, nothing will be the same again. Because in a few weeks' time, when it gets even worse, you'll do it twice. A few weeks' time, even worse, you'll do it more and more. Until winning the race is not important anymore. I'm going to change my dream. I just want to get across the Atlantic Ocean. And you know what? Getting across the Atlantic Ocean, rowing, is amazing. But that's not the dream. So I really believe that if we want to tell a great story next year, not just a good story, this is one of the things that we need to get better at all the time. Self-discipline. I'm going to move forward with that one. I had 2 things written on my boat. They're kind of mantras in my life. One, this is going to end, like my talk now. Okay? But whatever headwind you, and I'm speaking metaphorically now, whatever challenges you face in the future, whatever headwind, whatever current, whatever storm, whatever tough situation you find yourself, adversity, understand it's going to end. And the decision you make from that moment when it starts to when it does end is how people are going to judge you and the story you're going to tell. 2, I am never alone because the basis of my story is Ubuntu. It's about people. I am not where I am today because of me. I am where I am today because of the people I've surrounded myself with in my life. And I know that at any time I can get on that phone and call a person and say, yes, I'm struggling with something, please can you help me? Okay, and I'm sure that's the idea with this group of people here as well. So we had this is some footage from the race across Antarctica, so from the training all the way through to the end of the race. So one of the questions, sorry, Don, 1 second. One of the questions I'm asked most in my life is, so Pete, why do you do what you do? And a friend of mine's a cartoonist. I'm going to read it for you because I'm sure some of you can't see it from there. It says, what a man will do to get away from the wife for a while. I look pretty miserable in that cartoon. They say life at home must be tough. On the contrary, it's not. I do what I do because that's the vision that I have for my life. But when I'm sitting on my sled and I don't know if I'm going to live the next few minutes out, or in my rowing boats and I don't know if I'm going to live that storm out, I don't think about my dream or my vision. I don't think about the people that I raise funds for, the communities that I work with. I think about this one thing. I think about the people that I've surrounded myself with. If you were part of that team of people, I'd be thinking, what would you do to get me up, to get me going, to get me back, to get me to tell this story? And Kim and Hannah are right at the top of that list. And that's a note that I got from her one day. She said, Pete, when you get to that step that's too painful and too difficult to do for yourself, then do it for us. So, the next time I see you, I may not recognize you. I see a lot of people. But if you recognize me, sit me down and tell me a story. I know all of you could tell a very similar story with just different photographs. I want to thank you for your time. Thank you, Don, again, for the invite. It's been great speaking, and I've enjoyed meeting you all. I have copies of my book. If anybody, right at the end of the session, if you want, you can come in and speak to me. I have a book for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Peter, and sorry for standing up on you, but there's a little something from Henri just to thank you for your trouble.